Chapter 86. Comfort. Liam picked me up again, this time cradling me in his arms. He marched up 3 flights of stairs into my new apartment. Anton sat on the couch watching television. "Oh hey, you're back. Everyone's been looking for you," Anton said. My eyebrows rose so high I thought they were going to fly off my head. I really couldn't believe him right now. I gave him the finger as Liam walked us by. "What's that for?" Anton asked. "I can see why you passed on him as a leader," I said as Liam climbed one more set of stairs to my room. My room was completely unpacked. The cubes were set up and filled. The bed was made. Everything looked clean and spotless. It was so spacious. I guess I really didn't have that much stuff after all. Liam set me on the bed. "I'll stand guard. I'll just be outside." I grabbed his jacket and shook my head. I felt like a little kid, but I couldn't help it. "Please. I've never felt so powerless. I'd never felt like a victim before. And I really needed someone I trust with me. Liam, I don't have anyone." I could feel fresh tears trying to burst out again. I really didn't have anyone anymore. Mother was dead. Mila was dead. And everyone else I knew didn't care if I lived or died. I think Liam let out a sigh. It was hard to tell. It was like trying to watch a rock have feelings. He sat on the bed and crossed his arms. "What do you want me to do?" I stood up and started rummaging through the cubes looking for clothing. "Just stay here. That's all you have to do. Please. If Mr. Klein comes back, you're the only one that can fight him. That didn't work out so well the last time. I shot you." I turned around to look at him. "Is that why you are so upset?" I just stared at me. "You didn't shoot me. I shot me. I pulled the trigger." I lifted my smock to show him my stomach. "And look, I'm fine. Not a scratch." "What if that happens again?" "It won't. I figured out how to absorb his magic. He can't control me anymore. I think I might have killed him a little bit." "A little bit?" I thought I heard a hint of amusement in his voice. "I think he was dead for a minute, but then he wasn't." I grabbed up my clothes and headed for the bathroom. "Give me just a few minutes. Don't move." Liam glared at me again. I disappeared into the bathroom. It was nice to have a hot shower and brush my teeth. I found everything with ease, not that I had much stuff to find. Whoever had organized my stuff had done an excellent job. I was in and out in under 10 minutes. I half expected to find the room empty when I returned, but Liam still sat with his arms crossed on the bed. "You didn't leave," I said. "Could I have?" he asked. "You ordered me not to go." "Ordered?" I frowned. It wasn't an order. It was more of a plea. He stood. "Then I need to go. I should be out there with the brothers taking down the Grange faction. And what happens if Mr. Klein puppets his way back in here?" The thought of that almost made me vomit right there. He crossed his arms again as he looked down at me. "Do you just want revenge for him taking me? Do you want to destroy things and rage because you're angry he took me?" "Yes. I'm an orc. That's what we do." I put my hands on my hips. "Are all the orcs out there doing that?" "Yes. And I want to be out there with them. So, if Mr. Klein puppet masters his way in, he'll be able to control all the people left behind." Liam frowned. "Yes. Do you see the problem with this?" "Yes. So, maybe you can take your revenge by protecting me instead of battling against a faction that had nothing to do with taking me." "Nothing to do with?" I held up my hand. "Mr. Klein may have taken me and may be part of the Grange faction, but he was the only one I saw the whole time. I doubt the rest of his faction has any idea what he was doing." Liam's frown deepened. I reached a hand out and set it on the crook of his arm. "Please. Please stay. I don't feel safe otherwise." "I'm here, aren't I?" "You don't look happy about it." "I don't know what you want me to do. I'm an orc. We don't handle feelings well." "That's okay. I don't either." I tugged on his hand and pulled him after me towards the bed. "All you have to do is get comfortable and stay the night with me." "Is this a proposition?" "What?"
No.
"Not like that. I mean just like be here so when I wake up I feel safe." I patted one side of the bed. Liam sat down on it. He leaned forward and untied his leather boots. While he did that, I dropped my dirty clothes in a hamper and climbed into the other side. Liam turned and leaned against the headboard. His massive frame took up most of the bed. I flipped the light off then sunk into the covers. They felt so soft and safe. I wiggled around until I was perfectly comfortable with one arm over his huge leather-covered leg. I could feel the cold of his skin through the leather. "I feel like I should get a reward for this," Liam said. "Reward?" "A touch." His voice lilted just a little. I could help but giggle. I caught it and straightened my face. I knew he couldn't see it in the dark, but I needed to keep myself in check. This was my job as a leader, after all. Right. Okay. I pulled a little energy from him. It felt like raw strength with a coppery taste. Liam groaned with pleasure. I could feel his whole body relax. His hand dropped to my head, and he ran his fingers through my hair. It had been a long time since anyone had played with my hair, maybe since I was a kid, but now it felt more than just good. I kept schooled myself. I eased off the pull of energy. I couldn't get too carried away. Orc sex was like a battle, and I was not ready for that. I did like the way he felt, though. He was strong and loyal. I could taste that in his energy. Is that all, beloved? Don't I deserve more? I sat up and looked at him in the dark. How does sex work here? His face went completely drawn. I laughed.
No.
I mean here. When I'm the leader, can I have boyfriends? Of course. You are free to do as you wish. What about the brothers? What if I sleep with one of the brothers? Does that cause jealousy or anything? I am sure any of the brothers would love the honor of sleeping with you. I guess I'm doing that right now. I mean sex. What if it's more than just the touch? What if it's more than that? He frowned. Would you be able to control it? If you take all their energy, you can kill them. Can you control that during sex? I sat back. I never thought of that. Could I? I've never had sex while I have had this power. Is that a concern? Yes, but Matei took many women to bed. Most of them survived. He had a bad habit of sleep with the brothers' old ladies. I frowned. I don't want to do that. I don't want to come between anyone. I turned back around and leaned against the headboard. I get lonely sometimes. I turned to look at him. Do you have a girlfriend? Liam scoffed. Orcs do not have girlfriends or old ladies. Sex is a battle. I leveled a look at him. And what if the girl orc gets pregnant? What does she do? Well, she goes back to her female orc pack and raises the child. If it is a boy, he joins a male pack when he is of age. That all sounds very unemotional. He gave me a sideways look. Orcs are not good with emotions. What about me? What do you feel with me? You must feel something. Liam frowned. What do you mean? You call me beloved. You said you wanted revenge on Mr. Klein. You must feel something for me. I have sworn loyalty to you. I will protect you at all costs. But you do feel anything else? No, like love or fondness for me. I don't know what that feels like. I flipped the light on, then spun around and positioned myself on his lap to face him. I looked into his eyes. I guess he was handsome for an orc. He did have a few scars on his cheek and forehead, but most of his blue-gray skin was smooth. His tusked teeth were sharp but white. I set my hands on either side of his face. Chapter 88 Touch. Slowly my mind came back down to settle in my body. Liam's head hung resting next to my head on the pillow. He still held his massive form up above me to keep from crushing me. He was breathing hard. I ran my hand over his cheek. He was hot and sweating. Was that normal? He'd always been cold to the touch, but now he almost seemed a human temperature. I pressed a kiss onto his other cheek. He tilted his head to look at me. Thank you for using your power. I thought I was going to hurt you. I smirked. I didn't. And you didn't hurt me. He leaned on one elbow as his other hand came up to the bite on my neck. I did. His hands came away bloody. I shook my head. You didn't. He rolled to the side. My body tightened in pleasure as he moved out of me. I could see him squeeze his eyes shut with the same satisfaction. He settled in next to me. What do orc girls do now? His hands traced my skin across my stomach. Orc females would punch me in the face to show dominance and then walk away. Anything less is a sign of weakness. So, I am showing all the signs of weakness right now? You are not an orc. His fingers trailed to my forearm, where the Aurora sword hid beneath my skin. This must have been a painful tattoo. I know humans have low pain tolerances. Reveal, I commanded with power. The tattoo slid down my arm and solidified in my hand. Liam snatched his hand back. The white dagger glimmered iridescent against the lamp-lit room. What? He whispered. Hide, I commanded. The sword sank into my skin and slid back up my arm as a tattoo again. Liam lowered his hand slowly. He ran his finger across the smooth skin. I looked at him. He looked at me with a questioning eyebrow. You are full of surprises, he said. I smiled. You didn't use your power on me? I shook my head. Only in the beginning to test it. And what did you find with your tests? That I can control my power during sex. I'm just not sure if we had sex because of it or not. You're not doing a good job of telling me what you are feeling. That would be helpful right about now. For science. He cocked an eyebrow at me. I feel warm. Is that normal? He nodded once. Anything else?
No.
I frowned. What's wrong? Is that bad? He asked. I'm not really sure what that means. Does it have to mean something? I mean, it's data. I'll just have to try again. See if I get the same results. He frowned. What's wrong? He shook his head. Nothing. Come on. Something's wrong. I can tell. It's nothing. He reached over and flipped off the lamp. Go to sleep. You're tired. He pulled a blanket over me, then turned me, so my back was against his chest. He wrapped an arm around me and pulled me against him. I lay silent for a time. My body still tingled, but my mind was starting to come alive again. I was beginning to remember all those scary things I had been afraid of before. This had been a nice little retreat while it lasted, but Mr. Klein was still out there. The darkness was still out there wearing Mila. And they had plans for me. I snuggled in closer to Liam. I didn't feel too scared with him here at my back, but I wasn't sure how I would hold up on my own. I woke to the morning light streaming in from behind my window. I must have been late in the day because the sun was high in the sky, shining down on my shoulders. I was wrapped in the comforter with my head leaning against Liam's shoulder. He was sitting mostly upright with me cradled in his arms. The blanket was between my face and his shoulder. I ran my fingers over the cold skin of his shoulder. He slept with his head leaning back against the headrest, snoring softly. His naked blue-gray legs stuck out beneath the blankets across my small bed. I smiled. I wonder what had happened for him to change position so drastically. I slid my hand up to the side of his face. He still didn't wake. I pecked a kiss on his cheek and then carefully removed myself from the iron grip. I ended up leaving the blankets. They were pinned to the bed by his form. I tiptoed across the room. I turned back for one last look. I saw one of Liam's eyes shut quickly. I pretended not to notice and closed the bathroom door. I looked at myself in the mirror. My long dark blonde hair was a chaotic mess. I had bruises on my thighs that lined up with Liam's fingertips. The bite on my neck was marked with 4 holes and 8 little marks in between. Did orcs really have to have sharp teeth? More like, did I really have to have such soft skin? The problem wasn't that he was an orc. The problem was I wasn't. If I was an orc, I could be strong like he was. I could have iron skin. I could not give a fuck about feelings and run around smashing things. I could just stop thinking. I could stop being afraid of Mr. Klein, of the darkness, of all the other things out there that went bump in the night. I wetted a towel and washed away the damp blood. The area got larger as I realized I was covered in dry sweat. I gave that up and took a shower. I brushed my teeth and then lotioned my stupid soft skin. At least Liam seemed to like it. When I opened up the bathroom door, Liam was gone. He had taken all his clothes and his boots. My heart sank a little, but I remembered how he said they didn't get attached. It was just sex. Well, who was to say that couldn't happen again? I looked around the empty room and realized I was alone. My lungs tightened. I tried to breathe normally, but my heart beat faster. I was okay. Everything was fine. Liam was probably just getting cleaned up. I'm sure he wasn't very far. And Anton was probably just in his room. And there were probably a bunch of people downstairs. It was going to be okay. I wasn't alone. I was safe. My hands shook as I reached for my underwear. I closed my fingers against the tremor. The sooner I got dressed, the sooner I could find someone to annoy. Maybe Cole was working. Even Anton, that good-for-nothing lump, might bring me some solace. It wasn't like he could protect me from anything, but he was a person. I reached for my smock. Wait, no. I didn't have to work. I couldn't even fathom going back there. I threw the smock in the trash can. No. I would find a different job. Maybe they would let me be a bartender. I had to find something to earn my keep. I decided to dress the part. I didn't have much in the way of clothes, but I found a pair of jeans and a fitted quarter-sleeve shirt. I dabbed a bit of makeup on and went heavy on the eyeliner. I blow-dried my hair. It hung straight down my back when I was finished. I looked in the mirror. I felt too normal. I felt like a normal, boring person. There was no pizzazz, no drama. I was just plain. I'd have to work on that. I'd have to save up and buy new clothes and get a haircut. I needed to revamp my life instead of just surviving. I had all this new power in a new place. I needed to figure out who I was without a soul-crushing. Chapter 89, Bookkeeping. I walked down the stairs, past the garage, all the way down to the bar. It was mostly empty. A few of the bartenders worked at unpacking supplies and wiping down glasses. Cherry stood behind one counter, wiping it down. She waved me over when she saw me. "Good morning," she said. Good morning. I slipped into a bar stool as I watched her work. Is there anything I can do to help? She shook her head. How are you feeling? Did you sleep okay? Yes, thank you. How's Liam? I hesitated. Did she know? Did it matter? I bet he was pretty upset you didn't let him leave. Oh yes. He was very upset. He has a hard time sitting still. I bet he complained about standing guard. She waved a rag at me. But it's good for him. He needs to learn a little patience. Right. How did you like the place? While everyone was running around looking for you, I wanted to feel useful. I did some unpacking for you. I wanted you to feel at home. I hope that was okay. It's great. Thank you. It was nice not to come home to a bunch of boxes. Iba moment. Do you happen to know where Liam is? She pointed through the back door. He's working in the office. He's been running things since Matei disappeared. Thanks. I left her to her work as I slid off the chair and headed for the office door. I leaned against the door listening. It was quiet. I knocked. Come in, Liam's deep voice growled from the other side. I pushed the door open. He sat behind a massive desk at a computer. 2 leather armchairs sat facing the desk. Even though the desk was big, he looked entirely too large for the space. His massive fingers poked at the keyboard 1 key at a time. Yes, Liam asked without looking up. When I didn't answer, he did lift his eyes. You should be resting. Is there anything I can do to help? He stopped typing at the keys. You can do the books and ordering. He shook his head. I'm not any good at it. Can you teach me? I stepped around to the back of him and rested my hands on his huge shoulders. He tensed under my touch. I really don't know what I am doing. None of these numbers really make sense to me. I wasn't made for this shit. Okay, I'll figure it out. He rose out of the chair quicker than I expected. I took a step back. Passwords are in the notepad. Cherry can answer any other questions you have. He turned to leave. Liam. He paused. Are we okay? Fine. He left. I watched the door swing close behind him. We were not okay. I pushed the thought aside. Chasing after him probably wasn't going to make it any better. I sat in the chair and looked at the computer. I was looking at some sort of bookkeeping software. I scrolled through looking at the different chart of accounts. I looked at the previous ordering. I looked at the sales. My eyes went wide. There were a bunch of services provided in here other than the bar. Things like protection, takeout, cleaning, removal of remnants and disposals dotted the list. It looked like he ran a cleaning service. That would explain the fleet of vans in the mechanic shop. But this was a biker gang. Anyone smart enough could see it was a cover. This was how he made what they did legal. Did I ask about this? Or did I just keep my mouth shut? Did they expect me to run all this? I scrolled through the sales for the last few months. It looked like the business was limping along. After Matei left, the gang only took on big jobs and looked like they weren't getting paid. What kind of complicated mess had I just agreed to? I spent some time pushing all the buttons in the software to figure out what it did. I read every scrap of information in the books, and was fairly certain I had a clear picture of what this business entailed. It looked like Matei did a lot of mediation between clients. There were enormous charges for assessments and quotes. After his death, those broke off. He probably used his power to calm each side down so they could talk. I would have to brush up on my people skills if I decided to take that part on. It looked like the most recent charges were for protection, but the clients hadn't paid. There was very little on the disposal side. I imagined that included dead bodies. A knock at the door made me jump in my chair. Cherry pushed the door open. Hey, you okay? You've been in here for hours. The bar is about to open up. I nodded. Do you have a list for ordering? She shook her head. I usually just get what we got in the previous orders. But things are starting to run out. Is there a way you can order based on inventory? Matei was just so good at it. I nodded. Okay, I'll figure it out. I turned my attention back to the screen. Is Liam okay? She asked. I don't know. He looked very troubled. Usually he's raging around here and screaming at people. But he's just quiet today. I shook my head. Maybe he's upset I'm taking his place. Her curly honey blonde hair bounced as she shook her head. Oh no, he doesn't like being in charge. He is a warrior through and through. Most orcs are. They like to take orders, not give them. I shrugged. I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with orcs. I'm fairly new to this world. Wait. You're human, how can you see him as an orc? She gave a slight smile. I'm not human. No one that looks human down here is. Some are part human, but all of us are something else. I'm part fae. I don't have any special powers or anything, but I am a part of this world more than the human one. Once you see what's really out there, it's hard to go back. She nodded. You understand. I thought I was going crazy the first time I saw. Memories of Kira running from it passed through my mind. It was very unnerving, but now, I just sort of accept it. I still feel like I don't know anything though. Don't worry. It will come in time. You can always ask me. She gave a bright smile. Thanks. I definitely will. I need all the help I can get. No problem. Oh, we need more whiskey, top shelf. I nodded. I'm on it somehow. I'll get this all straightened out. Thanks. She disappeared through the door. Chapter 90 Orgy. The noise from the bar seeped in through the closed door. I rubbed at my eyes. I looked at the clock. I had been sitting here almost all day trying to figure this stuff out, but I think I finally had some success. I located an inventory that was separated out by drink and calculated by the bottle. I saw where the current inventory was updated each week. From there I extrapolated a list and made the order online. I tapped the enter button and everything was done. I sat back in the chair. I was tired but finally felt like I accomplished something. It had been a long time since I had been challenged like that. Maybe the last time was when Kira was working through the book trying to figure out runes. I never did find that book again. I needed to get my hands on some more books like that. The internet was not a great source. Maybe there was still a stock in Utah if that home still existed. The thought of even going outside made my stomach do a flip-flop. What if Mr. Klein was out there? What if he was watching me right now? I swung around the room in the office chair. There were no windows. I had forgotten I was underground. I let out a breath. Of course I was safe. This was probably the best place I could possibly be. I did the thing I always did when I was scared. The name whispered on my lips inaudibly. Remy. My heart hurt. I had to figure out how to rescue them both. That meant I needed to come up with a plan and face the darkness again. And that meant facing Mr. Klein again. He'd been working with Mila, well, whatever was pulling Mila's strings. I turned my mind to my other problem. Karma. What the hell was I going to do with her? She'd already fucked my life up at every turn. I needed to figure out how to get her on my good side. I stood and stretched. The bar noise was getting louder. I decided I should probably go and meet some people. I poked my head out the door. My mouth gaped open. The people in the bar were all over each other, and I don't mean in the violent way, well maybe the orcs. But seriously, there were hands and lips on everyone. Men on men, men on women, women on women, it didn't seem to matter. Cherry stood filling a beer for a man at the counter. What's going on? I asked. Cherry looked out over the crowd. I have no idea. Is it usually like this? She shook her head slowly as she watched. No. She nodded in the direction of two men kissing. They were big and muscular but holding each other like lovers. Especially them. She let out a giggle. Definitely did not expect that. Across the room, an orc woman was punching Liam in the face. His eyes were dark and lusty like they were the night before. He took her punch in the face then hit her in the ribs. She stepped back and smiled a toothy grin. A bit of jealousy took hold of me. But I reminded myself that what happened last night didn't mean anything. Cherry giggled brightly. I turned to see her lean over the counter and make out with the patron. Cherry? I asked. She waved me off. Something didn't feel right. I focused. The purple smoke of Karma's magic choked the air. The entire bar was clouded in it so thick I could barely see the people through it. I pushed through the couples. Each one was wrapped in a sharp tendril of purple linking the two together. At the center of the floor in a gold and purple throne sat the force of nature herself. She had her long brown legs over the side. Her purple dress draped gracefully around them. Karma. She frowned at the sight of me. I stepped forward between the crowd. They backed away as they groped at each other, giving us space. I was sure that was Karma's doing. The noise faded like we had stepped out of the room even though they were all still around me. No one else seemed to see her. I dropped to one knee and bent my head. Karma, goddess of a fate, what an honor for you to bestow a visit on me. I could feel her eyes look down on me. I kept my head lowered until she acknowledged me. She took a long time before she spoke. I'm not even sure what to call you. I lifted my eyes slowly. Karma was studying her nails. I don't know either. It has been months and you still haven't decided on a name. All that power Juno gave you, and you are just wasting it. I didn't say anything. I didn't have an answer for her. I didn't even have an answer for myself. She looked down at me. Are you having fun filling your father's shoes? They are going to blame you for this, you know. She wiggled her finger, indicating all the couples around me, making out and touching each other. Yes, goddess. That will be a fun mess for you to clean up. She smiled evilly. Yes, goddess. She dropped her feet to the ground and leaned forward towards me. Aren't you upset? I will handle it, goddess. She crossed her arms over her ample bosom. Angie, she said with a snap of her fingers. Angie appeared in a puff of purple smoke next to her throne. My throat tightened. I fought the urge to run into his arms to feel safe again. He didn't say anything. He stood there with his hands at his sides. He wore a pair of dark jeans with no shirt. His hair was cut a little shorter and combed back. His face was worn. When he looked at me, the corners of his mouth drew down, and his eyes grew sad. Karma stood and circled her throne around to Engandriel. Her finger spread his over his naked chest. She looked down at me. I tried very hard to keep my expression still. A small smile played on her lips. Angie. She drew out the word. I call him that because of you, you know. She turned back to him. Kiss me, she ordered. Engandriel dutifully lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. She wrapped her arms around his neck and pushed into him. Her hands moved his hands over her body. I knew she wanted me to look away. I knew she wanted a rise out of me. It was the same with this bar. She wanted me to overreact. Hell, I wanted to react. I wanted to jump and scream at her for messing in people's lives. I wanted to wrench her off Engandriel so fast and knock her on her ass. But she was just like any other bully, just like Mr. Klein. The best way to fight this was not to fight. She had to be bored of me, then she'd leave me alone. The only other way to beat a bully was to join them. And I had no idea what I could do to gain her respect. I didn't have the god power, and I didn't dare try my succubus power on her. That was just asking for trouble. So I stayed on my knee with my head bent and my eyes watching her make out with my angel, well, my former angel. She pulled back. Her eyes instantly darted to me. I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Her anger flared. Oh, that's right. You have a new lover. You replaced your dear Angie. He's out of the picture now, gone and forgotten. Now you have this big oaf. She flicked her fingers. The crowd parted. My eyes followed her gaze. The orc woman had her legs wrapped around Liam. One of his hands held her ass. The other pawed at her breast. He moved against her in a steady rhythm as she moaned in pleasure. The noise grew louder, like she had turned the volume up on a television. That was okay. It was fine. It was just sex, and it was probably just my power. Liam could have any girl he wanted. Hell, I could have anyone I wanted with this power. I could feel my jaw tighten. I tried to loosen it without her noticing. I brought my eyes back to her slowly. Her eyes sparkled. Damn it. A smile drew across her lips. Come on, Angie, I think we're done here for tonight. See you later, Nameless. She snapped. Karma and Engandriel disappeared. The throne remained. The noise went back to normal, and the people around me moved more normally. The purple haze still hung in the air. Chapter 91. Stop. I had to stop this. They weren't doing this of their own choice. I'm sure many of them would be incredibly embarrassed when they realized what they were doing. I stood on the chair of the throne and looked out over the crowd. Some couples had joined each other and were in a full orgy. I concentrated on the purple haze. I had seen the way Mr. Klein's magic worked. He sent out tendrils of magic from his body. Maybe I could project like that too. I could go around and touch each one of them, sapping Karma's magic out of them, but there were a lot of people here. But first I needed to start with the room. I opened up my magic. I couldn't see my own aura, but I could feel it. I imagined it like a vacuum. I pulled the purple haze in towards me and trying to suck it in my body. Slowly it moved. The magic felt strange. Powerful. This was the magic of a force of nature. It was way more than a goddess like Juno. It had a sweet and bitter taste to it. Felt potent like eating cheesecake. I pushed past the discomfort. I had to get it out of here. I sucked and pulled at the air. Slowly the purple cleared. The crowd was still going crazy. Slurping and moaning filled the air. If I could have plugged my ears I would have, but I held my hands out in front of me instead. I needed all the focus I could muster. I started with the person closest to me. I felt my magic wrap around him. I searched for Karma's rich magic and pulled it out of him. His eyes blinked. I looked down at the man he was holding. His hand snapped back. The other man clung to him. He squirmed. I quickly pulled the magic out of the other man. He froze. He looked up at the first man. They both jumped back. They seemed okay. It had worked. I left them to fight it out. I let my magic search out to multiple people this time. I sucked the magic from them. I was feeling laden with magic, but I had to keep going. I cleared Cherry. She pulled back from the man she had straddled on the bar counter. Her eyes glared at me. My gaze drifted to Liam. I sucked from that side of the room. I could feel the magic weighing me down. I wavered. Liam's eyes cleared. He looked at the orc woman he was having sex with. His eyes quickly looked at me. He was hard to read. It didn't matter. Even if this wasn't just karma's magic, he could still do as he wished. The noise around me went from moaning to fighting. People were starting to throw punches. I could hear chairs breaking as shouting rose. This wasn't what I wanted. Stop! I shouted above the noise. The music cut off as I screamed above them. Stop! Some eyes turned towards me, but others were too angry to let it go. Stop fighting. This isn't your fault. This was mine. My voice was lost in the noise. Even the people closest to me couldn't make out what I was saying. I saw the flash of a knife as someone whipped it out of his pocket. I had to do something quickly. I reached out with my magic again. I tried to connect to just the angry people. When I felt like I had a good connection, I pulled. The energy felt fresh. Alive. This was living energy, not that rich power of karma. They slowed. Their faces went slack. The bar drew quiet. All eyes turned to me. Some were clear. The others were lustful with my magic. I spoke again over the crowd as I stood above them on the throne. This wasn't your fault. Please. You are brothers. You are patrons. Someone played a nasty trick on you. Forgive each other. The power filling me danced inside my chest. I had too much. It was making my stomach swirl. Who did this? A few people called out. Car, I stared. The throne vanished beneath my feet. I lost my grip on my magic. I landed on my ankle sideways. I pitched forward on my hands as I squeaked in pain. Tears sprung to my eyes. I stared at the floor for a long time as I fought the pain and urge to vomit. People slowly started to move around me. Are you okay? Cherry's voice asked in my ear. She knelt beside me with her hand on my shoulder. Yeah, just fine, I breathed. Is she okay? Cole's voice came from my other side. I don't think so, Cherry answered for me. She doesn't look so good. I was thinking of some retort of, I'm right here. But I seriously didn't care at the moment. They could do as much talking for me as they wanted. I just wanted a bowl to vomit in. Beloved, can I get you out of here? Cole asked. I nodded my head up and down as fast as I could. He lifted me up off the floor by my waist and set me on my feet. White-hot pain shot up from my ankle, and I sucked in a sharp breath. Cole caught me. Take her into the office, Cherry said. I'll get some ice. Unbidden tears fell from my eyes. Why was she so nice to me? Why was Cole so nice to me? Cole scooped me and pushed through the mob of angry eyes. I ducked my head into his neck. He smelled like aftershave. I had to keep myself from moving my head in deeper. He opened the office door with one hand and set me in on the desk. Cherry followed him in with a bag of ice. What the hell just happened? Cole asked. Cherry set my foot on one of the armchairs and placed the ice on my ankle. Who was that chick? You saw her? I asked. Saw who? Cole asked. He looked between the two of us. Cherry nodded. Cole looked at me. Karma. Cherry blinked. Karma. Like the karma. Like karma. I nodded slowly as I pressed my lips together. I really pissed her off, and now she's making my life a living hell. Wait, what's going on? Cole asked. I was about to answer, but Cherry jumped in. You know how when someone does something bad, and you hope something bad happens to them and it does? He nodded. That's karma. Except karma is a real person, well, sort of. She's kind of like a god, but not really. Like dead but alive. A force of nature, I clarified. Yes, that's it. She's a force of nature. Cherry turned to me. And you pissed her off? I nodded. It's a long story, but pretty much I needed a sword from her and had to trade my guardian angel for it. Now she's messing with me. Can you just give it back? Cole asked. She doesn't want it. I've tried. She'd rather just mess with me instead. I'm like a toy to her. Something new and interesting. And so she decided to make the whole bar have sex? Cherry asked. I nodded. To blame it on me. People will think it was my power that did it. They won't trust me. And if I tell them it was karma, they will ask why, and then I will have to leave because she might do it again. I think you underestimate how much the brothers need the touch, Cole said. I frowned. They still won't trust me. The door burst open. Everyone looked up. Liam stood in the doorway with hard eyes. Kira? Liam asked. I dropped my eyes. I'm fine, I said. It wasn't her fault, Cherry said. It was karma, Cole added. He looked between them, then his stare landed on me. I slowly lifted my eyes to meet his. I'm sorry. It was my fault. I brought this on everyone. I shouldn't even be here. I shouldn't have brought my problems here. I'm sorry. I hung my head. Silence rang through the office. The tension in the air built. My stomach swirled with the richness of karma's power. I could feel it mounting, crawling up my esophagus. I held my stomach as I slid off the table. Hands steadied me. Beloved, Cole asked. Bathroom now? I kept my head lowered as I shuffled forward, limping on my swollen ankle. Cherry guided me. Liam stepped to the side, allowing us passage. She led me to a bathroom where I immediately puked in the toilet in one of the stalls. Chapter 92 Recovery. Cherry patted my back. She slipped something into my hand as I stared down at the toilet. There wasn't anything in my stomach to come up, just this morning's oatmeal. I squeezed the thing in my hand. Felt like a rock. My other hand braced against the stall wall to keep my shaking knees from collapsing. I brought the foreign object into view. It was a large clear crystal. I looked over to Cherry. Matei used to take in what he called bad energy every once in a while. He'd have a similar reaction. He never went anywhere without one of these. I nodded. Lanie had used one of these before. I dumped karma's thick energy into it. As it left me, I started to feel better, lighter. When it was all done, the crystal glowed bright purple. Do you see that? I asked. See what? How it glows. She shook her head. It looks the same to me. I frowned. That was strange. She could see things outside the veil, but she couldn't see energy. Just one more thing I would have to figure out in this new world. I washed my face at the sink. I could still feel the other energy dancing inside of me, but that felt brighter and cleaner. I didn't mind that. I stuffed it down in one of the wells and sent a little of it down to my injured ankle. Thanks, Karma. I exited the bathroom. Liam was standing at the end of the hall at a distance, talking with the orc woman from earlier. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but she was shoving him, and it looked like she was yelling at him. She went to punch him, but he caught her hand. She gave him an angry look and stormed off. He looked down the hall at me. I think a look of worry crossed his face, but it was so brief I couldn't be sure. He turned and left the hall back out to the bar. That's strange, Cherry whispered. I looked over to her with a questioning look. Liam never turns down an offer. I understood and looked away quickly. That woman wanted to finish what they started. I squeezed my eyes shut and pushed down the turmoil of feelings I didn't want to feel. Are you okay? I think I'm just tired. I'm going to sneak out of here, so I don't cause any more trouble. Don't worry. I'll explain what happened to the brothers, they'll understand. I shook my head. I don't think they will. They will, but... She gave me a sympathetic smile. They might not forgive you right away. I don't even know them. I don't expect them to forgive me at all. Come on. She grabbed my hand and pulled me after her. I limped along after her. My plans to run away from the mess I made leaped out of reach. She pulled me into the bar and patted the bar stool at the counter. Up you go. I scrambled very ungracefully onto the bar stool and sat facing her. I kept my eyes low. I felt awful. She poured me a drink. I sipped at it. Tasted like a rum and coke. I realized she had her head bent down and was looking at me. I lifted my eyes slightly. Just keep drinking, she said. I took a long drink through the straw. Slowly, the heat of the alcohol sunk into my cheeks. I took a deep breath and sat back. My eyes surveyed the busy bar. People were settling in. A few people cast glances in my direction, but mostly people seemed okay. No one had come to scream at me yet. My gaze settled on Liam. He was across the bar sitting among a group of orcs. He was deliberately not looking my direction. He was pissed at me, I could tell. I shouldn't have made him stay with me. I shouldn't have tested my power on him. I should just take care of these things on my own. So Kira, huh? Cherry asked, drawing my eyes back to her. What? Liam introduced you as Beloved, which is a title, but he called you Kira. My name's not Kira, I said flatly. Then what is it? I shrugged. I don't have one anymore. So it used to be Kira? And Lanie. Why do you change names so much? I let out a deep sigh. I don't. I was born Kira and I was born Lanie, then I merged into one person. Now well, I don't know. I'm both and I'm neither. I'm nameless. She pondered this for a minute. Her brow knit deeply. Why don't you just give yourself a name? I've tried. Nothing seems right. I don't even know who I am. Am I a god? Am I a succubus? Am I a witch? I just don't know. Cherry nodded in understanding as I spoke. It sounds like you need to figure out who you are first. I hung my head in my hands. I know. A man walked up to my side. He was tall with reddish-brown hair. Beloved. I picked my head up and turned to him. He dropped to his knees and held his hand out for mine. Can I have the touch? You're not upset with me? I asked. He shook his head. Why not? He shrugged. Matei had some pretty wild parties. There isn't much we haven't done. Just usually we also got the touch along with it. This time though I didn't feel it. So can I have it? I nodded quickly. Of course yes. My hand slid into his strong one. He brought it to his lips. As he kissed my hand I pulled energy from him. His face went slack. Another man hit his knees next to him. I held out my other hand. He snatched it up and pulled it to him gently. I pulled his energy too. More people crowded around me. They reached for me. I moved my hands from person to person, doling out good feelings. After one finished, the next person would fill his place. The energy felt hot and fresh inside me. It was slowly lifting my mood. I realized they weren't angry at all, just left wanting. Cole appeared at my side. I offered him a hand, but he shook his head. I moved on to the others until I made it through the whole crowd. They slowly wandered off back to their groups, and the entire bar settled down. I slumped against the chair. Cole took a seat next to me. See, they didn't mind. Did you do that? He shook his head. Liam did. My eyes cast about looking for the orc, but he wasn't anywhere in sight. When you see him, tell him thank you for me. Cole nodded. Why did you decline? I asked. He told me to protect you tonight. It's hard for me to think when I am touched. What's it like? The touch? It like being wrapped in a nice warm blanket while being buried balls deep in a good woman. I couldn't keep my giggle from escaping. I could feel the alcohol getting to me. Or maybe that was the excited energy jumping around inside me. It was charged, possibly from karma's interjection, but it wasn't making me sick. The door to the bar opened. The bar slowly grew silent. I looked over at the entrance. 4 brothers walked through the door. 2 of them carried a body. Chapter 93 Wounded. A table cleared as the man was deposited on it. People gathered around. Liam pushed through the crowd to the table. Granite, what happened? The Grange is pushing back, said one of the orcs that just came in. I slid off the chair and limped forward. Brothers parted from me as I walked through them towards the injured man. On 54th, they were attacking a flower shop under our protection. We took them on, but they had something new. It was so cold and dark, like a huge cloud. It took Trio. What do you mean, took him? Liam asked. It just swallowed him up. He was on the floor, not moving. 5 of our men fled. I couldn't move. I was frozen on the spot. The cloud disappeared with him in it. Then people were firing and I don't know. It was like time skipped forward, and we were under fire. Granite grabbed his head and shook it. I just don't know. I reached the table. A man lay stretched out. His breath was shallow. Blood streaked down from his mouth. His torso was a bloody mess. The brothers around him were holding bullet wounds in various parts of his body to slow the bleeding. They were at a flower shop? Liam asked. Granite nodded. The place was all shot up. We came in to protect the owners and defend our territory. That's when the dark cloud came. I grabbed up the man's bloodied hand. I had never tried to heal anyone other than myself, but I would do my best to give back to the brotherhood. I sent the fresh energy bubbling inside of me to the man's wounds. The bullets are still in there, I interrupted. The crowd looked at me. Get them out, I said. They looked at Liam. Do it, Liam said. Cherry stepped forward with a pair of tongs. She handed them to another woman that leaned over the dying man. She stabbed the tongs into the bullet wounds quickly and pulled them out one by one. I squeezed the man's hand and sent energy into him. My pink energy circled each of the wounds. I directed it down into them with a command that whispered off my lips. Heal. I couldn't feel the mending like I could when I used it on myself, but I imagined the skin knitting together. The woman playing doctor finished with the last one and backed off. Cherry stepped forward. Her face was drawn. She mopped up the blood oozing from the wounds. I pushed more energy into him, using up as much of the reserves I had so I could speed the healing process. The man coughed. Turn him over, I ordered. The brothers around us eased him up on his side. He coughed blood. It splattered across the floor. Cherry's eyebrow twitched at the mess. I held onto his hand while he coughed, sending more energy into him to mend the most life-threatening of the wounds. When he finished emptying his lungs, he rolled back to his back and breathed with deep breaths. What's your name? I asked. Castor, he said hoarsely. Are you feeling any better, Castor? Yes, beloved. Thank you. He breathed another deep sigh. Do you think I could get the touch? A low laugh escaped my lips. They really were junkies. I can't do that. You need all your energy right now to heal. Maybe after you heal fully. Okay. He shifted uncomfortably as the skin knitted together on his chest. I'll hold you to that. Of course. I ran my fingers through his hair. He closed his eyes at the touch. You're going to be okay. You fought hard today, thank you. I do it for you, beloved. I frowned. He did it for the touch, not for me. I had to earn that right. I had to step up and gain their loyalty, so it wasn't just for my power. I didn't want to be like Mr. Klein with a bunch of puppets on a string. I wanted a real connection to them, whether I was their leader or not. I lifted my eyes. Castor was going to live. I had stitched enough of him together to hold steady. Who else needs healing? 3 of the warriors stepped forward, 2 men and a giant. I directed them to sit on chairs at a table. I went to each and healed their wounds. There were so many slices and bullet wounds, and so much blood. It didn't really bother me. Both Kira and Lanie had been exposed to enough blood growing up that it was just natural. But my heart did ache for their wounds. I wanted to patch them up as fast as I could. Cherry came around after me offering them food and drink. When I finished, I collapsed in the bar stool. I was completely exhausted. My ankle was hot and swollen. I had drained myself completely, and I had nothing left. I sipped at a warm drink set in front of me. I was so tired that it was hard to swallow. The liquid kept escaping out the corners of my mouth. What time is it? I whispered. 4 a.m., Cherry said, sounding as exhausted as I was. She was cleaning off the counter and equipment like she was packing things up for the night. My head drooped down on my shoulders. Strong arms lifted me. I couldn't even muster enough strength to look to see who carried me. We ascended the stairs all the way up to my room. I was deposited in my bed and wrapped in a blanket. I was pulled against an iron steel body. The fingers played in my hair. My eyes flickered open just a little to see Liam looking down at me. Worry lines creased his face. I managed a small smile. Why do you look so concerned? You did a good thing today. You'll be a good leader soon. I'm not a leader, Liam. You are. Orcs are not leaders. We're warriors. My eyes closed even though I fought it. You're both. So are you. The words "but I'm not" died on my lips as I passed out. Chapter 94 Share. When I woke up, Liam was gone. The afternoon sun was high in the sky, leaving only a glow of light coming in from the windows. My entire body ached. My limbs felt heavy as I moved them across the huge bed and stumbled to the bathroom. The cold water didn't help when I splashed it on my face. A hot shower didn't help. I felt drained. I felt empty. My ankle was purple and bruised. Every step felt like it would slip sideways again with jolts of pain stabbing up my leg. I hopped around on my good leg after I couldn't stand it anymore. I tried to send energy down to heal it, but I had nothing left. I felt like I could barely function. I used the wall and the handrails to hop down the stairs. Anton was sleeping on the black leather couch with a huge television on. Everything about him irritated me. I realized he was my half-brother, but I couldn't get over how much of a leech he was. What did he even do all day? I stumbled forward, catching my balance on the edge of the couch. Anton snored loudly. I could smell his breath. Smelled like cheese puffs. I recoiled. I slapped his face a little, trying to wake him up. As soon as my hand made contact, I could feel the pull of energy. I snatched my hand back. I didn't mean to do that. Anton moaned in pleasure. Oops. I beat a quick retreat, limping away. I certainly didn't want to go down that road. I couldn't stand to stay any longer. I was starving, but I couldn't stay there with Anton like that. Maybe if I looked pathetic enough, someone would make me something down at the bar. I felt pathetic enough. I hopped down the stairs to the garage. Cole was leaning over the engine of the Hornet. Does it have any hope? I asked. Cole looked back over his shoulder at me. Beloved, how are you feeling? Like I was hit with a ton of bricks. You slept for 2 days. I blinked. I did. He nodded, then straightened and walked towards me. I didn't realize. How are the men that were injured? They are doing okay. Mostly all better thanks to you. More than I can say for you. He indicated my ankle with a nod of his head. I looked down at it. It will be fine. I just need some food. And maybe some energy. I can't believe I was out of it for 2 days. Did anything happen? A few more raids on our territory. Our people are worried. We're doing our best to protect them. Our people. His brow furrowed. Of course. We protect the people in our territory from the other factions. I didn't realize I was in the middle of a war. Cole rested a hand on my shoulder. It is like this in the magical realm. Every city has its factions. There are so many different powers, the strongest control the factions. Without protection, the lower-level people get abused, taxed, and terrorized. Oh my God. And Matei was in charge of this territory. He was keeping people safe. The protection charges, the cleaning. My eyes shot to the vans. It all makes sense. Wait, that meant Matei was a good guy. Cole's expression dropped. No one is really good or bad. Matei had to make some tough decisions. Not everyone agreed with him, but I didn't envy his position. That means you don't envy mine. I'm supposed to succeed him. I know nothing about the magical realm. I'm not a leader. I can't protect a magical territory. I don't know what I'm doing. My voice was getting higher as I grew more frantic. Cole squeezed my shoulder. It's okay. We protect you. Liam is taking the lead right now. You'll ease into it slowly. You all think I have a lot more power than I do. I'm not like Matei. I don't know how to use it. I'm just making it up as I go along. Beloved, stop. You have more power than Matei ever did. He couldn't heal anyone. I've never seen that before. You are so much more than I have ever seen before. I looked into his blue-gray eyes. He was so sincere. I could feel tears of frustration welling in my eyes, but I blinked them away. Cherry told me no one here is human. So what are you? I'm part nymph. Nymph? Like a wood nymph. He laughed. Not exactly. I think my descendants were stone nymphs. So, do you have any special powers? He shrugged. I'm a little empathic. So I know how much that ankle is hurting you and how hungry you are. I looked away. I'm okay. Yeah, well, you're a terrible liar. He swept me into his arms and carried me down to the barn. I felt helpless that someone always seemed to be carrying me around. I wasn't one of those 5'0" waifs, but the men threw me around like a tiny doll anyways. I did appreciate it in this instance. I was exhausted and my ankle hurt. He planted me on a bar stool. Bring her a little bit of everything. Cole sat down next to me. The man behind the bar nodded and disappeared through a back door. Cole held his hand out to me. Here. Are you sure? Of course. Any of the brothers would love to be in my place right now. He gave me a wink. I took up his hand and pulled energy from him. His eyes flickered close. His lips tightened as he swallowed back a moan. The energy felt warm as it trickled in. I could finally move without feeling like I was full of lead. After a few minutes, a spread of fried fish, tater tots, French fries, chicken wings, and various other bar foods appeared in front of me. Thank you, I said. The bartender nodded and went back to his prep work. I released my hold on Cole's hand and started stuffing bits of fried food into my mouth. It was crispy and juicy all at the same time. Cole leaned back against the chair, enjoying the pleasure I had given him. After I had downed the entire fish basket, he opened his eyes back up. You can take more, he said. I didn't want to make you do something embarrassing. A smile quirked at the corner of his lips. I wouldn't mind. None of the brothers here would. He leaned in closer. They are jealous that you know me by name. I need to work on that, I said between bites of a chicken strip. I think it's important that I know everyone here. That is a good step towards being a leader. His hand crept closer to me. Please, beloved. I know you like doing it. A blush touched my cheeks. That empathic thing is going to get you in trouble. His smile was disarming. It always does. I had a hard time tearing my eyes away from him. My hand trailed the top of his hand. What's it feel like? There's nothing else like it. Try it out. I pulled his energy, but as I did, I started to feel a mounting feeling of love and warmth in my heart. Everything went hazy around the edges like I was looking through a fog. A heat trickled from my heart down low between my legs. Slowly pleasure built until I was having a hard time controlling my breathing. I held my tongue as noises tried to escape. I didn't want it to stop. I kept pulling and kept feeling that pleasure deep down inside me. It mounted higher until it crested, but unlike an orgasm, it held. I was in a state of constant pleasure. I could have stayed like that forever. Some part of my brain irked at me to stop. If I took too much, the same thing that happened to Mr. Kane could happen to him. I pried my fingers away from Cole. The pleasure stopped immediately. I was slammed back into reality, cold, hard reality, but the energy was now dancing inside of me. Cole was moaning next to me as his pleasure slowly waned. His eyes opened. Do you see what I mean? You shared that with me? He nodded. That's a cool power. Not as cool as yours. Now if you'd excuse me, I need to go clean up. He shot me a smile and disappeared through the door into the hallway. He walked like a man in a daze. Chapter 96 Week. I limped all the way to the back area where bigger booths spread out. They fit together to make full circles with tables in the center. End tables spread out everywhere. It seemed like a nice place to lounge or have a meeting, whatever the night entailed. The back ones were lined with curtains. Several of them were drawn. In the center of it all, overlooking the dance floor below, was a huge sectioned-off area draped in black curtains. It seemed to be the VIP section. Several orcs stood around the entrance. I slunk closer and heard Liam's voice from inside. "Well, did you take care of it?" "We tried, but he's not dead," came another male voice. I craned my head to the side to peek in the opening. The orc standing guard opened the curtain wider. He arched an eyebrow at me and nodded his head towards it. I pressed my lips together as I tried to act casual, like I was meant to be here. I slipped around the curtain. Liam sat to the right of me on a large chaise full of pillows. A dozen other armchairs and two-seaters sat around a round table. A man sat in an armchair across the table from him. Liam's eyes shifted to me as I entered. The man he was talking to looked over. His face went white. His eyes were bloodshot. "Is this her?" Liam gave him a single nod. The man hit the table as he scrambled towards me. Liam's jaw tightened as he watched. I tried to step back but hit the closed curtain. The man fell at my feet. "Please, beloved, please. I have not had the touch in months. Please," he begged. His eyes were crazed. I pressed my finger on his sweaty brow and pulled his energy. He was brimming with it. His whole body shook and then steadied. I didn't want this to go on for too long, so I just pulled it out in a considerable chunk. He gasped with immense pleasure and sagged against my legs. It threatened to topple me. I grabbed for the booth. Liam stood swiftly and caught my forearms in his iron grip. He lifted me free of the man's hold and swung me around to the other side of him. I landed on the chaise. It was soft and cushy under my butt. "You must share her," Liam spat. The man bowed his head in my direction.
"I'm sorry, beloved."
"I didn't mean to. I just got so excited." His voice was rushed and had a bit of whine to it. He pulled his body back into the chair, looking rather dazed but still having an air of nervous energy about him. "Now Rishi, you were saying?" Liam asked as he settled in next to me. "Oh right, yes. He's holed up somewhere between Auburn and 45th Street. We are seeing a few patrols there." "That's not too far from where I came out of the tunnels," I said. "Who's out there now?" Liam asked. "Charlie's group. They're searching everything north of Auburn." "How many did you lose in the last encounter?" Liam asked. 3. 2 bled out. 1 is in the hospital. Next time bring them home. We'll take care of our own from now on. Did we hire a doctor? "I can heal them," I said. The man's eyes shot to me. Liam's arm came up around my shoulders but he didn't look at me. "Is that true?" Liam gave a nod. The man looked back at me. "We really do have a strong leader. We're going to take over this whole town." Liam glowered at him. "Why don't you go rest up and leave the planning to the leader?" Rishi lowered his head. "Yes, Liam." His eyes snapped back to me. "Thank you, beloved." "You're welcome." Liam pulled me tighter to his side. Rishi left. The curtain closed behind him. I sat nestled into Liam's side. The leather jacket shielded his cold skin, but I still wanted to feel it. His eyes watched the people out on the dance floor while I watched him. "You don't like Rishi?" I asked. "He's a fine brother. Very dedicated. But you don't trust him." "I don't want him to hurt you." "I don't think he meant to hurt me." "He still did. It was an accident." "I don't care. Too many of the brothers can be careless. They need to be careful with you. You're delicate." I scoffed. I rose to my knees, careful to keep my swollen ankle off to the side. I held my face right in front of Liam's view so he couldn't avoid me. "I'm not delicate. I think I proved that the other night. What I mean is, you're not an orc. That doesn't make me a porcelain doll. You are also new here. You don't know how things work. You don't know everything that can go wrong. I think I can cause a lot more things to go wrong than the brothers can. Remember orgy night? With Karma? That is way more dangerous than Rishi is. Lighten up." Liam grasped my shoulders. I thought he was going to shake me, but instead he pulled me into a hug. I slowly wrapped my arms around his neck and held him tight. "Are you feeling okay?" I asked. He growled. "What's wrong?" "Feelings," he spat. "Those are not orc emotions. We don't have feelings." "So you don't feel anger or rage?" I pulled back to look him in the eyes. "Or jealousy?" "Jealousy? Never. What would be the point?" I looked where Rishi had disappeared out the curtain. "You're not jealous because Rishi was falling all over me?" "What?"
No.
"I just didn't want him to hurt you. Worry is an emotion." He pushed me back a little. I wasn't worried. I cocked my head at him. I didn't want to fight with him, but it was fun to watch his denial. Okay. I sat back down next to him and watched the bodies on the dance floor. Okay. What? I believe you. You're a big strong orc with no feelings. I held my hand out in an okay gesture. Got it. Liam growled. Before I could make another comeback, the curtain opened. An orc woman walked through. Her figure was curvy beneath her leather jacket of the Arter brothers. I recognized her as the woman Liam was having sex with when Karma was here. Liam, we have unfinished business, she said before she fully walked in. Her eyes landed on me. Beloved, she said icily. Her eyes shot back to Liam. I could feel him tense under her gaze. Priscilla, I told you we were through. We were not. She swung a hand at his face. It smacked him with a resounding slap. Liam just turned his face sideways and held it there, not looking at her. We were under the influence of magic. There is nothing to resolve. She stood staring at him. I heard you decline Terran too. What's wrong with you? Get up and defend yourself. She swung her fist back. Liam stood and caught it before she could hit him. He lifted her arm up over her head while he looked down at her from his towering height. She was only 6 inches shorter, but she stared back at him with so much fire I thought they were going to kill each other. I told you we're through. I didn't get your seed. It wasn't a consenting transaction, Liam hissed. That never mattered before. It matters now. She scanned his face. You're weak. He lifted her arm higher until only her toes touched the floor. I am not weak, he spat. She sniffed the air. Her eyes shifted to me. Wait. A human. She laughed heartily. With a human? Oh, now that's grand. That's. She laughed harder. A human. Liam dropped her hand. She doubled over, still laughing. Liam stood looking down at her. She finally recovered enough to stand up. Small chuckles escaped her tusked mouth. That's the best thing I've heard all week. Liam and a human. What? No response. Liam just glared at her. Her laughter died. She shoved him. He didn't move. She punched him in the side. He still didn't move. Fine, she said. I'll get it from someone stronger. She hesitated, waiting for his response. Liam stood like a stone wall. She looked him up and down one more time, then disappeared out the curtain. Why didn't you deny it? Won't she tell everyone? Will people stop following you? I asked. Liam sat down slowly. His heavy frame sank into the chaise, causing me to lean towards him. She was only looking for a rise out of me. Orc women like to hit all the buttons to make us mad so that we will mate with them. They're very good at it. But why did you turn her down? He looked out over the bar area, watching Priscilla walk down the stairs. I just don't feel like. Chapter 97, Support. A figure clad in a pure white suit materialized in front of us. I don't know how long I stared at it until I realized he was actually standing there. Miss Grey Hatfield? The man said. I blinked. Yes. Liam turned to me. What? The man in white continued. I'm Iridel. I have a few questions about your recent transactions pertaining to the contract of Engandriel. What about it? Liam looked between Iridel and me. Are you talking to someone? I turned to him. Can you not see him? I turned back to Iridel. Can he not see you? Iridel shook his head. Can you change that? Iridel frowned. Please. Fine. Iridel snapped his fingers. Liam's head snapped to the angel. A low guttural growl escaped him. Iridel ignored him. The questions, Miss Grey Hatfield? Go ahead. White smoke puffed in his hand, and a notebook and pen materialized. Are you aware that your recent purchase has broken 6 of the magical laws, restricting the actions of contracts to act without their purchaser's consent? I raised my eyebrows. Are you aware that your recent contract has been revealing himself to the living? I frowned. Are you a war? Look, I'm not aware of anything. I had to trade his contract to Karma to repay a debt. Any complaint you have about Engandriel, you need to go take it up with her. Karma. I nodded. He looked down at his notepad. I see. Do you happen to have any other contracts in your possession? No. Are you interested in purchasing more contracts? Maybe. He smiled. Well, I'm here to offer our services on behalf of Heaven for the reform and punishment of contracts. We have a very lucrative package with a reasonable rate for long-term contract obedience. You're a salesman? Liam growled. I'm simply an informant. Would you like to see a brochure? No, I said. Iridel was not in the slightest bit put off. Would you like a tour of our section? It could be beneficial for your future purchases. No, both Liam and I said together. Liam stood. He towered over Iredal. I don't find you in the least bit threatening. I'm already dead, the man said dismissively. Liam stared him down anyways. Iredal, do you have a card or something? Yes, I do. He fished it out of his suit pocket and held it out. I snatched it up. If I have any needs, I'll contact you. Okay. Iredal smiled. He beamed at Liam, which just made him angrier. Very well. He disappeared in a puff of white smoke. Liam turned to me. Contracts. I sat on the chaise. It's complicated. Apparently when you die, someone owns your soul. You have to work for them. And you own someone? I nodded. And you sold them? I didn't want to. He made me do it. Liam sat heavily. The more I get to know you, the more interesting you become. I shrugged. I'm not though. Weird things just happen to me. Kira, weird things don't just happen to people. They happen because of people. When did you become a sage? He scoffed. I'm not a sage. And my name's not Kira. Then what is your name? I don't have one yet. Well, I'm calling you Kira until you pick a new name. Not beloved? I asked. He gave me a half shrug. You know, Lanie is actually the one that propositioned you outside the bar. He lifted an eyebridge. Oh really? I gave him a smirk. We both turned as Cherry entered through the open curtain. She set a basket of chicken strips and French fries on the table along with 2 strong drinks. I could smell the alcohol from where I sat. Thanks, I said. She nodded. How's the ankle? It's getting better. I've been focusing on healing it. It should be better by tomorrow. That's good. How are the visitors? Liam glowered at her. That good, huh? She turned to me. Beloved, I had your phone charging in the bar. Came back when the boys went looking for you the first time. It keeps ringing. She handed me the flip phone with 2 fingers like it was the most disgusting thing she'd ever seen. Would you like me to get you a new one? I took the phone from her. It's fine. It works. Yes, but... She looked over at Liam. He gave a slight nod. I only caught it out of the corner of my eye as I flipped open the phone. 54 missed calls from Mr. Klein. My stomach folded in on itself. Okay, well, have fun. Let me know if you need anything. Cherry disappeared out of the curtain. The phone rang in my hands. Mr. Klein was calling again. A low throaty growl came from Liam. He snatched the phone out of my hand. I tried to grab it, but he leaned away from me and held me at bay with one forearm. Mr. Klein, Liam answered.
No. No.
I don't believe you.
No.
You can't have her. I don't care.
No.
He hung up the phone. I looked at him expectantly. He leaned back against the pillows while he stuck the phone in his jacket pocket. Well, I asked. It's not important. Really? He shook his head. The phone rang again. From in his pocket he pressed the button and the ringer stopped. Are you sure it wasn't important? I asked. Very. The phone rang again. He closed his hand over the pocket. A crunch sounded and the ringing died. I grimaced. Maybe I do need a new phone. And a new number, he said. 3 orc women walked in through the curtain. Priscilla looked straight at me, ignoring Liam completely. Beloved, we are here for the touch. I looked over at Liam. He didn't take his eyes off Priscilla. I looked back at her. Priscilla, right? She nodded. Why don't you have a seat? Make yourself comfortable. 3 orc women sat down in separate armchairs. I stood and held my hand out to Priscilla. She took it. I started pulling energy from her. She immediately started moaning and overplaying the pleasure I was giving her. I raised my eyebrows at Liam. He looked away. His eyes passed us and down to the dance floor. I turned to the next woman. What's your name? Taryn. Nice to meet you. I held my other hand out to her. She took it. She began moaning. Eyes from down below were starting to look our direction. Both the women got louder. I ducked my head, but I was still in view of a majority of the bar. A few people started climbing the stairs towards us. I wrenched a large amount of energy from Priscilla. The moan she shrieked this time was warranted. I let her go and moved on to the last one. Name? I asked her. She was quieter. Hallie. I nodded. Here, take my hand. I held my hand out to her. She took it and I pulled her energy. She didn't moan out loud, but she did clamp her mouth down against the pleasure she was feeling. I didn't pull too fast with her. I let her enjoy it. The other 2 sat leaning back, enjoying the lasting feeling. I finished up with Hallie and joined Liam. He stood and left abruptly. I watched him go. A man poked his head through. More. I cocked my head to the side. More people are here for the touch. Oh sure. Send them in. A line of people filed in and sat in the chairs. I moved from one to the other. The orc women left. Men and women of all races and species filed in. I moved from one to the next until I was brimming with energy. After what felt like hours, the last of them finally left. I was exhausted, but at the same time, felt like bouncing off the walls. Cherry came in to check on me. How'd it go? I gave her a big exhausted sigh. Did Matei do this every night? She laughed. Don't worry. It will get better. They are all a little behind and are excited. You don't need it? I asked. She shook her head. I just work here. I'm not a sister. That's probably a smart choice. She shrugged. Maybe someday, but I'm not ready to wear a jacket and ride a motorcycle yet. I'm happy behind the counter playing support. I feel like that's what I'm doing. Well, it's helping. I plopped back down on the chaise. I really hope so. I looked down at the daggers on the inside of my forearms. Lanie would be so disappointed. We were supposed to be warriors. I shook my head.
No.
I was supposed to be a warrior. I needed to figure out who I was.